Sirens, Slammers, and Service, a podcast for female first responders by female first responders. My name is Nikki Clucci, and I will be your host. As a former correctional officer in Alberta for almost 2 decades and the founder of Blue Line Fitness Testing, which provides law enforcement fitness testing and first responder wellness workshops, I started this podcast as a way for female first responders to share the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of their daily work. I want to showcase the unique perspectives, skill sets, and personalities that women bring to a first responder career and share their stories. So get ready to laugh your ass off, learn a whole bunch, and be inspired by some pretty badass women. Let's go. Well, guys, today, oh my gosh, I am joined by a triplet, I think it is, of first responders. I am joined by Susie Pestana. Susie is currently a team lead community peace officer with Sturgeon County. She's been there for 3 years. She's also a paid on-call firefighter with the town of Morinville, where she's been for 2 years. And previously, she was part of the Canadian Armed Forces for 17 years. She is also a mama of two, an 8 and 10-year-old boy and girl. And I am just so freaking pumped to have you here today. How are you, Susie?
Good. What's
I,
up, girl?
I
Finally, hey, we finally
It's
get to
totally
chat.
true. So Susie and I have been trying to get together since like February. Yeah, the conference was in February, and like had chatted before then, kind of like Instagram followers and fun friends like that, and then actually got the chance to meet in person at the Alberta Association of Community Peace Officers conference in, where were we? Jasper this year? Yeah, Jasper in February. Always a great time, great
Yeah.
conference. If you get an opportunity to go, I highly recommend it. They put on some really great workshops. There's really great opportunities to network with everybody, which I love too. So, yeah, if you get a chance to go, go. And yeah, we just kind of connected in the social suite afterwards and got a chance to chat. And I said, yeah, I want you on. Let's do it. And then schedules and life and everything gets in the way. So here we are. It's July and we're finally doing it. It's
hmm
awesome. Um, but I'm so pumped because we talked a little bit at the conference and just about like all the different things that you've done, the roles that you've played, what you're doing now, like the skill set that you bring and everything. And it's just totally rad. Like, I think it's just fucking so cool that you do all these things. So, break it down for me. Like 17 years in the military, then made the jump over to community peace officer while also still being a paid on call firefighter. How did you get into this? What led you to this? And then what the fuck has been going on for the last 20 years that you've been navigating all this?
Okay, when you say 20 years, that is like mind-boggling to me and makes me feel so old. But it is, now that you say it like that. Yeah, that's wild. And I mean, it is kind of crazy because when I look back, like I do have quite a diverse background. I've done a lot of things, which I mean, in the end, has just made me sort of a stronger asset to whatever team I go to or job that I go to. But yeah, I guess it all started way back when I was 16. I guess even further than that. I was raised by my grandparents. My mom was around as well, but my grandparents were really the ones who raised my sister and I with my mom in the house too. And my grandpa was a World War II veteran, and he was like one of Canada's first paratroopers. So he was really my role model growing up, and I just always knew I wanted to be like him. So I just remember like sitting at the dinner table, and my mom and my grandma and my sister would sort of get up and be done, and him and I would sit there, and he would tell me stories, and I just looked up to him so much. So I kind of knew really early on that I wanted to join the military at some point. And then as I got older, I became more and more interested in policing as well. So when I turned 16, one day I pretended I was sick and stayed home from school. And I was like, Grandpa, like today's the day you drive me to the recruiting center and I'm going to join the army. And he was like, okay, well, then I want you to join the Navy and be an officer because that's where you'll be treated the best and you'll get, a good education and all of those things. You'll travel the world and you'll be safe. And I was like, no, like I want to be like you. So I want to join the infantry. And he was really old school. And he was like, well, I don't really know if women should be combat arms, which I know sounds really bad at first, but I'll explain what his reasoning was. Anyway, my response to that was, well, they're letting women do it. And I want to be like you. So that's what I'm going to do. So he drove me and I joined the reserves as infantry at first and did my basic as sort of like a co-op program, which was so cool because instead of going to high school, I went to the armories out in Hamilton, Ontario. I'm from the Toronto area. And I did like Monday to Friday, we did half the day was like basic training, and then half the day was like math class,
Mhm.
like fitness training. It was such a cool experience for that age. And then we ended up like going away to do sort of our field training portions, and we would go away from Monday to Friday, which was like for all of us like 16, 17 years old, it was our first time being away from home like 5 days in a row, and we're doing like all these adult things. Like it was wild when I look back at it, but super cool. And so then I graduated high school and was just at that point like full force in the reserves, but I had been accepted to college for a police foundations program. So I was like, yeah, I better get that under my belt still. So I kind of did juggled both of those things. I was like working with the reserves as much as I could be, but also going to school, and I successfully completed that diploma. And then I thought about going to university and using sort of my police foundations to finish a degree in criminology. And then I was like, wait a minute, I'm making money. I'm already doing a job that I love. Like, why wouldn't I just do this full time? And like, the military has military police. So I could like put both of those things together and have like the best of both worlds and become an MP. So I went full time. Like, as my, it's quite the process. I heard one of the other
Yeah.
ladies you spoke to who was in the military, like there's everything, I mean, you know, too, everything government has such a process involved, and especially federal government. But so yeah, I moved up to Petawawa, Ontario, to the base, and I worked there full time while my transfer to the regular force went through. And I worked with, actually at that time we had a new special forces unit that was standing up, and I got to work with them, which was like a whole other amazing
That's I
experience.
love it. I love it. Light it up.
Like, Nikki, I feel like I have so much I want to talk to you about. Like, we're gonna need a second episode. But anyways, yeah. But yeah, so then I went to the assessment center. So it's basically like a selection for military police. And I made it through that and got selected, went regular force MP. So I did my military police training at the Military Police Academy, which is also in Ontario. And it's, I guess you could equate it, it's most closely mirrored to like the RCMP depot program and training. At least it used to be when I went through. So that was a 6 month course, and then you get to pick three postings where you want to go. At the time, like I was still very close with my family, and my dad had actually passed away while I was on
Yeah.
training. So my three choices were like greater, like central Ontario, basically. And I was one of the few people
Yeah.
on the course that was single with no kids. So they were like, nope, sorry, we'll accommodate those people first, which I totally understand. You're going to go to CFB Edmonton because we need some more females out there and they need more people. So that's where you're going. And I was like my head dropped. I was like heartbroken, thinking like, Florida, like I don't know anybody there. Like
Yeah.
what am I going to do? So I would have been 21 at that time. And luckily, like there was a couple, I had already lived away from home and was used to being away from home, but like within driving distance, right? So it was a pretty big deal. And luckily, like I had a couple other course mates who got sent out here to Edmonton as well. So we kind of drove out together and made the move together and supported each other, which was nice. Yeah, so I got to CFB Edmonton, where I was on patrols like as a regular patrol cop, and did like my field training phase on patrols here at CFB Edmonton. And that didn't last that long really, because Afghanistan was really ramped up at this time. So this would have been '08 that I arrived in Edmonton. And basically it was like you do your like
Mhm.
most minimal time on patrols to pass your field training phase, and then like you're going to the field platoon and training for Afghanistan, because it was tour after tour at that point. So that's what happened. So I went to the field training platoon, trained for Afghanistan, and then I deployed to Afghanistan 2009 2010 as a member of the Pomlet. So what that was is we were
Okay.
basically a mix of infantry and military police, and our role was to mentor the Afghan police. On paper, that was our role, but like where we were, like out in the shit, like our Afghan police, like couldn't even, many of them couldn't read or write. They didn't have proper equipment. So really, we
Mhm.
were just kind of with the infantry, like doing their job, like listening to them and sort of filling in certain policing
Wow.
skills if we could. But it was more just teaching them how to survive, teaching them first aid, teaching them like weapons handling skills and things like that. So yeah, I did spent 7 months out there in the shit, and best time of my life. Like it's
Yeah.
funny because I look back and people are like, that must have been so hard. And I'm like, yeah, but all we had to, it sounds crazy, but all we had to worry about was staying alive, really. Like we had no stresses of like being at home, paying our bills, taking the garbage out, the kids are yelling for you. Like none of that stuff, no like extra drama. It was just like we were doing our jobs, just had to stay alive. Like and we like you make the most of it. And if you have a good team, like some of the stuff we did to like keep ourselves entertained is like ridiculous. Like it was anyway, again, like we need more episodes, but that tour was an an amazing experience. And yeah, so I came home from that and I actually was on the same team as my now husband. We were not a couple at that time, but we definitely bonded and got to know each other. And certainly, like, there was something there. And we came back and him and I like started getting more serious with each other and what, our relationship. And then I got posted back to Ontario. So he stayed here and I went to Ontario. But it was a great thing for me because my grandfather was not doing well. My mom was not doing well. So my family really needed my support at that time. And on a professional level, I was really interested at point becoming an investigator and getting involved in investigations. And I got posted to the National Investigations Unit, which is basically our equivalent of like any major crimes unit. It was really good on a personal level and a professional level. Yeah. So I was in Ottawa and I did the major crimes thing for a few years there and I loved it. Like I absolutely loved it. And I was able to drive home on weekends and sort of be there for my family and help them out when they were going through a hard time. So it worked out great that way. And eventually, my now hubby and I through it,
Wow.
like we don't want to be with anyone else. So even if it means across the country, we're just going to commit to each other and things will work out.
Oh.
And it did. So we got married like when I was living there and he was living here. And then so we were like married for 6 months and still had never even lived with each other other than in Afghanistan. We did the Ottawa thing for a few years and then we knew like we'd always have to come back to Edmonton because just with his job as infantry and his regiment, the Princess Patricia's here in Edmonton, and we knew he would have to come back. And we were fine with that because his whole family is out here in the Edmonton area. And at that point,
Mhm.
I ended up losing my mom as well and my grandpa. So I have my grandma, my sister's still there, but I really wanted my kids to, they do have a set of grandparents here and I wanted them to be surrounded by family. And it was really, really hard to leave my family. And, unfortunately, sometimes the military has to send you where they need you. But it was a blessing that we at least had family here to sort of help us and have a relationship with our kiddos. It ended up being a good thing. But yeah, I came to the major crimes office here in the Edmonton area and eventually became a sergeant and the team lead of a team of investigators and loved every second of it. And it was just kind of in 2019. So my husband did end up doing another tour to Afghanistan as well, and some mental and physical injuries sort of came out of those tours. So it was time for him to leave the military and he did. And then I was, loving my job still in the military and doing really well. And it was one of those situations of, okay, well, you're, you can't stay here forever. So you're either going to have to deploy or you're going to, be promoted and posted somewhere else. And you're going to have to be separated from your family for a year. Or it was none of those things were an option for me at this point, having the two little ones at home um, and my hubby sort of figuring out, navigating what he was going to do and moving forward with his future. So I decided that I would get out too. And that was one of the most difficult things I ever had to do because like I said, this is, the military was
Mhm.
always what I wanted to do. And I thought I would be a lifer and would never leave. Things change and life changes. And the military also changed during those 17 years. So
Mhm.
I think I left at the right time because I left still like proud of the work that I did and the uniform that I was wearing and all of those things. So Yeah, so then unfortunately, my release date was April 1st, 2020, which was the height of COVID. So I always thought, I'm going to get out, I'll put an application in with EPS or CMP. Like, if I'm not in the military, like, I love being an investigator. Policing's my thing. I'll be a cop for another organization. And then, like, everywhere was
Mhm.
figuring out COVID and hiring freezes. And then the kids were out of school. So I was at home with the kids when the schools were all out. And I was like I naturally just thought I would have another job lined up immediately when I left the military. And I almost did. And then COVID messed with that. So I was like, you know what? This is a blessing in disguise because I never would have had this time with my kids at home otherwise. So I just tried to enjoy that time with them, as crazy as that time was for us and everybody else in the world. And then during that time, while I was trying to figure out, okay, well, I do still need to figure out what I'm going to do eventually. There was a opening at a shelter, like a domestic violence shelter, and I won't talk too much about the shelter because I don't want to compromise anything. But I took a job there as a client advocate. A lot of my time in major crimes was spent working sex crimes and offenses against children, and I'm very passionate in those areas, and I had experience in those areas. So I was like, I've always been an advocate for people in these situations. But, I also had like a boundary of where my support to them had to stop because I was the investigator, not victim services and
Mhm.
not the victim advocate, sort of on more of a personal level. So I gave that a shot. And again, like an amazing learning experience. I loved it so much. It was not something I would ever do forever. Like I had to come back to sort of my law enforcement,
Mhm.
I would love to do more volunteering with victim services. I just the unsung heroes in that field are like I just can't talk enough about the amazing work that people are doing in that area, and we need more people in that area, social services and supports in general, but it was amazing. So then I started doing some research on the peace officer world because my husband kind of
Mhm.
said to me one day, I know you just like naturally thought you would go like into a policing role somewhere, but he's like, maybe this happened for a reason. Maybe there's another opportunity that's coming your way
Mhm.
because we left the military because we, wanted a bit healthier and more stable family life. We didn't want to be traveling and missing bedtimes all the time. And he's like, you're going to be on overnight shifts. You are experienced, but of course, you're going to have to pay your dues still and probably get not the best hours or shifts or positions at first, and like maybe there's something else you can do that'll still provide us that. And we actually had a friend that was a peace officer, and he sort of encouraged me, and I did a ride along with him and learned about like the day to day. And I was like, yeah, I want to give this a shot. I want to give this a shot. So I did. Eventually, like I'm trying to think about the timeline now. I've done so many things that it's like I can't, it's all kind of a blur. Like I can't believe
Mhm.
I'm at this point and it's 2024. But anyway, I've been in this role as a peace officer now for just over 3 years. Growing up there, like there is no
Mhm.
peace officers. Like we have the OPP as our provincial police, right? So and then we have like bylaw officers. So I've learned so much. Like I came into this job not really understanding sort of how it all worked, and now I do. And it's still like it's crazy. Like, yes, yeah, it's wild. And I have like so many ideas all the time about this peace officer world and things like other things we can be doing. And I know there's so many other peace officers out there that feel the same way. And really, it was at that conference that I got to meet you at in person where I finally,
Mhm.
like, because of COVID, I hadn't really met peace officers from other areas before except for my location. And I finally got to meet like other peace officers from other areas and hear like their thoughts and opinions, their struggles, their successes, and meet some like-minded people and people that have had like the same thoughts and ideas. And it was, yeah, it was really eye-opening, really cool.
Mhm.
I'm so
Yeah.
glad I went and had that experience because there's so many amazing people in the peace officer world. And,
Yeah.
it does get
Yeah.
kind of siloed, like not because anyone wants it to be, but because, yeah, like our training and, we're mandated by the Soljan, but we have our municipality as our employer. So everyone does do things a little bit differently because we all have different employers, even though we like wear the same uniform. So yeah, it's really interesting. But I have a great team. They're amazing and love where I work. I love like the municipality I work for, the area and the residents we have. And I've tried to just like build a lot of positive relationships. And now I just recently was promoted into the team leader role here.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey guys, wanted to pop on here before we got into this next episode and let you know about a couple new rad ideas that we have for the podcast. So, the first one is we have a survey up, and I would love to know what you guys think about the show. I'd love your feedback. I'd love your ideas for the next season. And I'd just love to know what you like and what you dislike about the podcast. And I'm going to sweeten the deal with a $50 gift card randomly drawn from everybody that completes the survey. The survey is going to be in the show notes of all of our shows. So no matter what time you start listening to the podcast at, you'll get a chance to win that gift certificate. The second thing that we're bringing in now is the ability for you guys to leave us a voicemail. You guys can actually call into the show, leave us a voicemail, let us know what you think about the show. If you have a funny story you'd like to share from your time as a first responder, I would love those and showcase those on the show as well. So make sure you guys check out that voicemail feature. It's going to be in the show notes, and check out the survey. Make sure you get that chance to win that gift certificate. So weird. But so what is the difference between the like what you're learning military police, or like the role for military police compared to like regular policing? Because I always think like military police, like you're policing the soldiers. So like making sure, because like I had some friends in the infantry and they would get in shit with you guys all the time, like all the time. And then I heard all about the military jail and I was like, yes, I love it. But like when we're talking
Yeah.
like investigations and stuff like that, so like when you're going to the basic training, you're learning, I'm assuming, like all like regular policing, but then is there additional training that's related specifically to the military?
So you do like your regular military basic training, like your boot camp, like everybody else, and learn the basics of the military. And then you do your soldier qualification. I don't know how they do it now, but back in the day, it was just the Army military police, because military police can be Army, Navy, or Air Force. And I think they've changed this. I think all military police do your soldier qualification now, but back then it was mostly just the Army MPs that would be going to Army bases, basically, that would go on that course. And that's just learning even more about the soldiering and the field stuff rather than
Mm-hmm.
just like the drill and the military regulations and all of that. And then because I was already in the military, I didn't have to worry about any of that when I got picked up as military police, because I had already done all that in my time in the reserves as infantry. And infantry was short lived. That was like, I did that for basic training and then I switched to artillery with the big guns. And anyway, so all that time in the Army like that, I already had all those qualifications. So when I went to military police academy, which is like specific military police training, and it's a little bit longer, I think, than what depot training was at the time, because we do basically all the same, like legal studies, use of force, weapons, all of that that you would do as any other police training. But we also have like our military specific portions. So like deployment detainee handling, for example, and military law, for example, that obviously other police agencies wouldn't have in their training. So yeah, it was like a quite a long and intensive course, and very like diverse in the different skills and units and modules sort of we had to go through. So as military police, once you finish that qualification, you are credentialed, you're badged, and you have full policing authorities within your jurisdiction. So it
Mm-hmm.
gets a little confusing because it can differ province to province depending on where you're posted. But at that time, like when I got posted to, I had like full authority as long as it was on military property, or even sometimes if it was involving military personnel or had some kind of military nexus, if the other police of jurisdiction waived their jurisdiction to us. So if you were a civilian and you were on our base, I had full authority to arrest you, process you, charge you, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not
Mm-hmm.
just policing the soldiers. Yeah. So yeah, it's really interesting to people. People do not understand the military police, and it has evolved over the years and changed a little bit with authorities and whatnot. But they're federal peace officers, so they have pretty much the same policing authority as any other agency. It's just our jurisdiction that is interesting and can change.
And so when you go on deployment, because technically the Canadian military is in that location, does that then become your jurisdiction? So therefore you still have authority there?
Yeah, like you still have authority over all like national defense employees or military personnel, but it also depends on your role. Like there's military police that get deployed specifically for that purpose to like handle policing matters for our people. And then there's
Mm-hmm.
military police that get deployed, say, to mentor or train the host country that we're in. And they wouldn't be focusing on those on policing our own. They would be focusing on their other roles that they've been assigned to for that deployment.
Okay, that's cool. And then, so I also want to touch on your deployment time because thank you for going to Afghanistan when the rest of us did not. I greatly appreciate it. And tell me about your, because you're saying you had some really funny ways that you entertained yourself. I want to know the funny ways that you entertained yourself. What did you do? Or what shenanigans did you get up to while you were there?
I'm trying to think of some examples that are appropriate to share because some
That
of
are
them just people won't understand it. It's not that they're, yeah.
You need the G-rated versions.
But it was just like, yeah, it's just like silly though. Like we had a team of 10 of us, and depending on like if somebody was out on their leave at that time or whatever, and then we kind of lived like I guess the best way to explain it, it's like an kind of like an outpost camp, and half of the camp was ours and half of the camp belonged to the Afghan police. And that was strange within itself because we had our own little area and privacy, and they weren't supposed to come into our area, which they would sometimes, but just that dynamic of like living with them and having to respect the way that they lived, even if we didn't agree with things that they were doing, or in our minds, they could be doing something that is like wrong or illegal, but in that country, it's not. So we can't
Mm-hmm.
intervene. We can't really do much with it. We've got our rules of engagement as well, and all these different policies and regulations we need to follow. So like that dynamic was so interesting within itself. But there was like there was all kinds of things. Like I don't even know where to start with it. But we used to like we sometimes had TV. We like binged the Office for a while, but we had like really shoddy internet. We could rarely ever call our family. We had like a satellite phone and had to like stand on the roof in a certain corner and hold it up in the air to be able to like reach somebody. So we just had to entertain ourselves, whether that was like making up games or like different like workout challenges or like okay, one that I will say like using like the extra fuel that we had to like write things on the rocks and then light it on fire to like make a pattern and like jump through the like just silly things that like when people are bored, you just find ways to entertain yourselves. But my crew was amazing. They were so great. I was the only female there that part of my deployment, which was the majority of my deployment, and just like brothers for life. They were amazing. Well, except for my husband who was also there, but like I said, we weren't together quite yet. But
Yeah,
yeah, like it
that's
was,
good.
like I said, there's so much I could tell you about that deployment experience, and I would love to, but like that would take up a whole episode on its own. So
Yeah, we'll have you back. We'll have you back and we will chat that because I think our listeners would love
for
to hear
sure.
about that for sure. Okay, and so then the next kind of question I have, like kind of evolving with your career is so you come back to Edmonton, you go back to military policing, and then you go into investigations. And so major crime investigations. So again, how does that relate to kind of military work? Like, because you were saying, domestic violence, offenses against children, things like that. So are you like, I'm kind of like going back to Terry Goslin, who was on I think she was on season 1, who was a military reservist, is now seconded full time doing intelligence work. So is it linked to that in that you're also investigating kind of external, I guess, people that but are linked to the military that are doing crimes against women and children? Or is it that's more internal based? We have domestic violence going on between, families within the military, or we have crimes against children going on within the military. How does that play out?
It's really both. I try to explain. People sometimes are shocked, like, you have a drug problem in the military, you have sexual assaults occur in the military, and it's the best way to explain it to people, or how I try to anyway, is the military is like any other community or city, or like we have people from all walks of life and backgrounds. We have people with, we have some bad people that unfortunately, made it into this these professions, or married somebody who is in the military, or is a civilian that works on the base. And it's unfortunate, but we also have people that have like addictions and mental health concerns. And we have like, it's just like any other city or community. We have all kinds, and it's unfortunate when people have to hear about it, and it does involve military personnel. Is though what I will say is it is on a much like lower level. Like most of our military personnel are amazing people and doing a great job. And but there are those bad people there. And so, yeah, there, some of our subjects on our files were military personnel. Some of them were spouses or partners or children or parents of military personnel, but living on the base with them, for example, or visiting when a crime occurred. So it's, again, it's like any other jurisdiction. So when it came to the offenses against children, the sex crimes, sudden deaths, drug cases, frauds, like all of those things that we would investigate, it the same as any other police force. And it could be someone in the military or a civilian, but it would have some sort of military nexus. Like they were involved. Usually it's that it occurred on military property. Sometimes it was involving military personnel, not just on military property. And then again, then you get into those conversations with other agencies to decide who's going to take lead on this.
Yeah, I was going to say, because like obviously being, in Edmonton, you're going to be liaising with Edmonton police, but then you're also, the base is kind of like on the outer edge. So you've got St. Albert, you've got, the surrounding communities that you'd really have to be good in those relationships with your stakeholders to be able to kind of provide that seamless support across the, I guess, range of people. Like I said, if it just happened on military property, but they're not military personnel, you're still going to have to follow through. There still has to be the file work. There still has to be the communication. So yeah, that's really interesting. And so within like so like when it goes to trial, or it goes like it's a positive case, charges are laid, it's all internal. Like they're not going into, so say you've done something bad on base and it's in Edmonton. You're not going to the Edmonton law courts under Edmonton law court law. You're going to criminal court in the military. So how does that?
So we do go to regular criminal court. Our cases go to regular Edmonton law courts. Yeah, so we've got our military law and our military justice system, and then everything else, like anything criminal, is, I mean, we might decide to charge somebody under military law instead of criminal law, depending on the circumstance. But there's certain things like, sex crimes, for example, that we will go criminal because the civilian justice system is more equipped to handle those situations. The military justice system cannot, doesn't have the resources and sort of legal backing to properly handle certain situations. So that's one thing about the job too. It was always like there's so many laws and policies and regulations and things like that involved in the military that was sometimes a battle, is, between us as the investigators and talking to like military legal counsel, civilian legal counsel, and figuring out how do we best handle this, which laws are most appropriate for this situation. Yeah, so it could go either way. Mostly in the major crimes unit, most of our stuff would go downtown and be criminal and not handled under the military legal system.
That is so interesting, because I thought it was all in-house. Like I thought it was all like military criminal system. So that's,
and most
like,
people do. Yeah, most people do think that.
I do have to like ask you about the military justice, because everybody hears, right? Like, I kind of, again, like friends that were in the infantry that got drunk and didn't make it to whatever, a parade in the morning, and did it multiple times and ended up getting in trouble with you guys. Scrubbing the barracks with a toothbrush and doing things like that. Is that part of it? Is it for real, or is that just in the movies? Tell me.
I would say it was. It was at a point in time. Not anymore. I would say the military prison, as you've heard, is notorious for being very structured and strict and regimented. And I would say out of correctional institutions in Canada, it still probably is, but way less people are sent to the DB, the detention barracks nowadays. Are again, I think I don't want to like speak out of line because things have changed drastically even the last few years since I've been gone, and I'm not completely current on where things are at. But we've recognized that the military legal system and how we handle corrections and discipline had some holes and needed to modernize. So again, I don't want to speak at a line, but I would say, yeah, there was a time where that was absolutely happening. I would say it's not anymore as far as I'm aware. And I think we are really trying to modernize and make sure, if we have to go a little more civilian with how we operate to make sure that we are current with like human rights and all of those things. I think that that's been recognized and constantly being worked on and evolving. But yeah, there was a time like even not getting in trouble. Like when I was on my leadership course in Petawawa in 2006, like I know I heard, I think it was Terry that you were speaking to that was talking about Carrie or Terry, sorry, Jocelyn,
Terry.
that was talking about the inspection.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay. And I was
Yes.
just laughing listening to that episode because I'm like, yeah, girl, I hear you. It was like ridiculous. But anyway, even on courses like that, we were like scrubbing like the most ridiculous things. We were like polishing like any brass we could find in the building, like the little pieces on the floor and the doorways and the doorknobs. Like it's crazy. It's ridiculous the things that you do. I don't know if they still do that, but like to try to explain it to people, they're like, why would you do that? And it's like, well, you don't have a choice. Once you're
Yeah,
in, like you don't really have a choice. Like you just and you kind of like it's normalized. Like you just thought it was normal. So
it's totally true. Totally true.
it's not
Um,
normal.
It's well,
Yeah.
it kind of is. It's normal within the community, right? It's normal within the community. Okay,
Yeah.
and so then now evolving into community peace officer. So did you find like that transition? Because like we always talk about again, just transitioning out of first responder careers. You kind of transition and then transition back in. What are you seeing similarities between the two, and then differences between the two?
So one of the things that was difficult for me was like anyone who's had a gun on their tool belt before, basically. That was and they even asked me that in my job interview actually at the time. Um, the person interviewing me, who was a manager here, had experience in the military police as well. And, he asked me that, like, are you do you think you're going to be comfortable with coming into a role where you don't have a gun on your duty belt when you're used to having it there? And, I thought about it and I still have a lot of thoughts and opinions on that area, as again, I know most peace officers do, and even those that aren't peace officers. But once I learned more about the role and sort of what, we're meant for and what our role is in the community, I was like, I think I'll be okay. And even though I had the gun on my duty belt, like in a military police capacity in Canada, I never had to draw mine even once. So I think it gives people like that almost a false sense of confidence sometimes
Hmm.
too. It's a controversial subject, but that was definitely something that I had to think about and become comfortable with. Beyond that, I think what's interesting to me is as military police, even though we have full authorities and we're doing all the things that other police officers are doing, you do often feel like you're not a like because people don't understand our role, they don't understand our training and our capabilities and the amazing work that's being done, and even just the crime and the problems that we might be encountering. And I know a lot of peace officers sort of get that feeling too, and I know I've talked to a few people that like they've been called a like kind of less than or rent a cop or something like that. And it's our role is not to be a police officer, like we
Hmm.
enforce the law, but even more than that, like if you ask me, and I know Sturgeon County is focused on this where I work, and my team is all about this, is making the community feel safe and heard. And you don't need to be in a policing role to be able to do that. We're still enforcing laws, they're just at a different level, municipal and provincial, rather than provincial and federal. So, and it's a really important role that we have because so much of what we deal with, if we don't deal with it at our level, then it does become a police issue. and even just our
Mhm.
presence, having the training that we do, there's so much we can do to support the police, support the RCMP, for example. And again, it comes down to, we've already touched on it, but building those relationships. And what I am seeing everywhere now, where I think we lacked a lot before, especially in law enforcement, was collaborating. And I think, back in the day, it was really like territorial. And now people are
Mhm.
finally realizing, like, you can't win a war alone. We're all chasing after the same goals, and, have similar missions, and we can all support each other and help each other get there. And this peace officer role is so crucial to that in this province. And I'm sure the other provinces that have peace officers as well, or similar roles. So it's actually, I think, a really exciting time, because I think with all the talks that are occurring with policing, and especially in
Mhm.
this province, I think that's going to kind of come out more and more. And I think peace officers are going to start getting more sort of utilizing us more in the ways that we should be utilized, and people are going to
Mhm.
start to see really what we're doing and what we're capable of and how we can be used. And I think that's exciting, because there's some amazing people in these roles. So yeah, I think, I mean, that between MP and peace officer, I really noticed that there was that, still, it's like we're all playing for the same team, but we're not a police officer. Even though I was called military police, it's like a lot of times other agencies would treat us, well, oh, well, you're not a real cop, you're a military cop. And it's like, yeah, I'm still a cop. I'm just policing a different kind of community. And it actually makes
Mhm.
it a lot more complex with all these extra things that, we have to deal with along the way. So
Yeah, I love how you've shed light on this, like, basically hidden law enforcement role, because that's totally it. It's totally true. Like, there's a lot of stuff that is added on to that policing role that you don't even think about. You just, like, legal jurisdictions, like the different, like, you get to detaining, like, there's all these different things that you need to also be, like, on top of the regular policing stuff. And I do completely, I'm glad you touched on, that collaboration piece now in the peace officer role is so vital, because it is exactly like you said, it was very territorial. There are still some communities that are very territorial, that don't want to share resources. They don't want to do joint ops. They don't want to do anything where, they're not going to be able to take all the glory in the, resulting arrest or whatever it is, right? And it's just crazy to think of it like that, because okay, like, and I really just kind of go, okay, well then you pay for it all. Go ahead, little tiny community, blah blah blah. You want to take all the credit? You pay for it. Wait, you don't have the budget dollars for that? I know, isn't that crazy that you don't have the budget dollars for that? But hey, you know what? If we do it with the
I
three
know.
other communities, then you're paying a quarter of what the cost would be. And can you afford that? You can afford that. Well, guess what, guys? We're gonna do it. And I literally think that that is what's coming down the pipe now. I think it might not be in that the sole purpose is that people have realized collaboration. I truly do think a lot of it has come down to budget dollars, and the higher ups, the administration is going, no, we cannot do that, and no, we can't get that piece of equipment, but we can split it with somebody else and get that piece of equipment, or that, that thing. But we don't have the budget dollars to do it all on our own anymore. So that territorial siloed kind of effect is going to have to go by the wayside, because you can't do business like that anymore, right? So, okay, so now let's roll into fire, and then I want to wrap up with some rapid fire questions, but I don't want to skip over the fire
Sure.
part. So, paid on call firefighter with the town of Morinville for 2 years. How are you
Yeah.
liking that? Is it exciting? Do you love it?
I love it. So let me tell you, like, yeah, we cannot skip over it, because I never thought, like, firefighting was not in my brain anywhere. Like, I have already done so many things. I've had so many roles in the military, as military police, now as a peace officer. Like, I also just finished my degree last year. Like, I've had so many things on the go and done so many things. And like, I've always loved working with firefighters, like on a scene, for example, or whatever, and have the utmost respect for them. But it was not in my brain at all for something that I would do. And then I started working here as a peace officer, and we share our hall, our building, with our firefighters. And I've always, like, I coming from the military, like, the brotherhood, sisterhood is really important to me, and those relationships are really important to me. So when I started working here, I naturally was like, oh, these are my dudes and my girl, because we have one full-time female firefighter. And I just considered us all like on the same team, and just loved them all and loved hearing what they were up to, and started supporting them here and there at scenes. And then a couple of the full time guys are also paid on call in Morinville. And one of them was like, you should give it a shot. Because I was also at this time, like, I was loving the peace officer role, but there was a part of me that was feeling like I want to stay in this role, but I have so much experience in training. Like I feel like I still have more to give. Like I
Hmm.
was feeling a bit of a void. Like I have more to give and I would love to give it in this community, but how do I do that? And yeah, he's like a brother to me now, but he was like, you should try out for Morinville Fire. Like we have no females right now. It's been a few years since we had a female. We like historically have only had a few females. I think you would fit in and be great. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to give it a shot. Morinville's a little bit different because there is a lot of full time firefighters that are paid on calls there, which we are so lucky to have. But they do have a fitness test as part of their application process, which I know not all paid on call departments have because so many of them are just like struggling to get people and have firefighters on the board. So I was like, okay, like am I like ready for the fitness test? And I work out a lot with the firefighters and other members of my team here at work. So he was like, "Oh yeah, you're ready for it. You'll be fine." And so I went and I applied and everything worked out. And then the way they do it too, it's like pretty again, like I think compared to other paid on call departments, like their process is like more intense, but like amazing and like sets this
Yeah.
standard of like
Hmm.
professionalism. And I was just so like from all the different teams I've been on, I was just so impressed by them. Like, and I was just so excited to be a part of it. Anyway, it all went well. And then I completed my 1001 level 1 and level 2 training last year through them as well. And yeah, I've been there 2 years and just loving every minute of it. Like I'm happy with my full-time job. Like I'm not looking to become a full-time firefighter at this point or anything like that. But it has filled like my sense of duty that I kind of felt like I had lost a bit of since leaving the military. And not to say I'm not doing that in my peace officer role, I
Hmm.
am. And again, like this role is amazing, but again, I have all this background and such a sense of duty, and I was like, I know I have more to give, so
Hmm.
it's really fulfilled that. It's an amazing department. I've been loving every second of it, and I'm like, just put me in the shit, put me on the nozzle, send me on a medical call, whatever. Like I just want like all the experience, and I'm learning from these guys younger than me, and it's just amazing. They're all so great. Like it's been wonderful.
It really is, like I said, like that, like a first responder career, it is a very multifaceted, usually, right? And so sometimes you can kind of get pigeonholed into a role where you're just working on this one track and you start to like be like, oh, I missed that part though. I missed some of that, or I really want to try that again. And so I love that you've been able to kind of marry it up and find success in both sides because I think, again, and I've mentioned this probably in every single episode, but first responder careers, we go in ebbs and flows. We go, I fucking love this career. It's amazing. I hate this career. It's terrible. I love this career. It's amazing. I hate this fucking career. It's terrible. Right. And so, and if you kind of get onto that single track and you're only doing that one thing, that's usually when you start to head down into the valley of I hate this job. It's boring. I'm not fulfilled. I'm not, or either that or you're working with a shitty shift that you hate and you can't, but like for you to be able to then go, okay, well, I don't have to this career, but I'm going to add on this other side of things that I'm missing, right? And for other first responders, that maybe you need to go back to volunteering somewhere. Maybe you need to go back to an extracurricular, something that fills your bucket to coach or to, like whatever it is that you feel that's
Exactly.
missing. You may not need to leave that first responder career. You may just need to find something that's going to fill the bucket somewhere else and make you feel fulfilled and make you feel like you're that well-rounded kind of individual again. So I absolutely love that you've married that up. I think that's
Yeah,
fantastic.
it all intersects. Like it's helped me in my peace officer role, and the peace officer role has helped me in the fire role, and my military police and my soldier skills and all of those things have helped me. So yeah, amazing.
Yes,
It's been great.
yes, I love it. I love that. That's fantastic. So I do want to wrap up with some rapid fire questions because I don't want to take your whole day, and I know that you're busy and very clearly in uniform, so clearly working very hard. And I've stolen an hour of your life already. But so tell me, okay, so
Worth it.
we're gonna go, and you can pick whatever year of your career that you want to. What is your favorite food or snack when you are working, or when you have been working, or when you've been in the shit, or when you're on a nozzle, or when you're in a car, or when you're in Afghanistan?
Okay, so okay. So this is going to be an interesting answer because it reminds me of Christmas in Afghanistan, and our Christmas dinner was like Kraft dinner and powdered mashed potatoes because we didn't have many
Yes.
options. So not that that's a favorite, but I just thought a funny thing to share and a memory of that I'll never forget. Fun fact about me, which people don't believe, but I have never eaten a donut in my entire life. Not even a Timbit. And people never
What?
believe me. I know, especially like working in law enforcement, people never believe me. And I'm like, even the smell of them, like it grosses me out. And people have tried to trick me and like snuck them into my food before. And I'm like, I'm in my late 30s. I'm not about to start now. If I've handled it this long, I'm not about to start now.
That
But
is
like, I love to,
unbelievable.
I know.
That's
Yeah,
I
so
love
that's a
that.
little fun fact for you. But yeah, I'm not a sweet eater, but I love to bake. So everyone knows like at work here at the fire hall, in my old role, like I always, especially cookies, I love to bake like different unique cookies, but I never eat them because I'm not a sweet eater. So like I'll bake, but I won't eat them. And I know it's really corny and everyone's like, come on, but like really for me, it's like protein bars, protein shakes is like my thing.
That's good. It's good. I mean, you're healthy. You're still providing snacks for everybody else so that we can eat the delicious things. So, I
Yeah.
mean, I will take that. I will take that. I just,
Yeah. You
I
always got to take
cannot
care of your
believe,
crew with snacks.
totally, I cannot believe you've never had a donut though. That is just like, that's mind blowing to me. Like, especially considering
I know.
like, if
I've never had a strudel.
Oh my God. Like if you get a good donut, like it, swear to God, it can be like life changing. Like I had a really good donut the other day. And I literally just sat there and I was like, God damn, this donut is one of the best donuts I've ever had. And I just literally just enjoyed every single bite. I was like, this is such a good fucking donut. And I mean, like, we're not talking Tim Hortons. Tim Hortons donuts are fucking garbage. Tim Hortons donuts are like when it's the middle of the night shift and you literally have no other food and you're like, well, I guess I'll eat a donut. That's what Tim Hortons donuts are. If you get like good donuts from like a good donut place, like I'm telling you, it's life changing. But I know if it grosses you out and you don't want it, I get it. I totally get it. But I think it's fucking
Yeah.
crazy that you've never had one. Oh my gosh. Okay, next one. And again, because you've had so many different roles, you can pick this from any of them. What has been your favorite piece of equipment to use or be trained on or play with or have the opportunity to kind of utilize in your careers?
Okay, so from my military time, we didn't get into it, but I'm a paratrooper. Like I have my jump course, and that's something I fought for to get to again, like follow in my grandpa's footsteps. So in like related to my military role, I'm going to say a parachute because that was like a lifelong goal that I achieved. And like since I've jumped with my husband like on Remembrance Day, and the drop zone was named after my grandpa and my kids were watching, and so airborne, I cannot compare myself to like, the airborne regiment or the real paratroopers out there, but I am a qualified paratrooper and I completed my course and I've done a jump since. So I'm really proud of that. So I have to say a parachute related to my military career. I would have to say our hasty sling, and it's something
Okay.
we carry in our left leg pocket, and it's basically like a how do I explain it? It's like it's like a tubular piece like a ratchet strap almost strap like rope, and we like tie it so it's kind of in a circle, but anyway it can be used, it's so versatile and it can be used for so many things, like to catch doors on forcible entry, but more importantly for like victim rescue, down firefighter to rescue them. You can like there's ways to put it on yourself. Like it's just so versatile and it's always on your body. And yeah, so I love that. So I know that's a little different. I heard I think it was Daisy talking about the New York hook, which is like also really cool. I haven't got
Mm-hmm.
to use that on a call yet. Um, but yeah, I'll go with hasty sling. And in policing and the peace officer role, it's not an actual tool, but I'm just gonna say communication skills. communication skills for like verbal de-escalation, for building
Mm-hmm.
rapport. And a lot of my time in major crimes was spent interviewing. So I will always encourage people to work on their communication skills and adapting to their audience and being self-aware as far as their own sort of style and whatnot. Like, you cannot understate the importance of communication skills.
And I was going to touch on that when you were talking about, like not having a sidearm on your duty belt anymore, and how, like some people are like thrown off by that. For me, because like in corrections, never, like literally only now do we now have things on our belt. We have OC, we have cuffs, we have shackles, we have baton sometimes. When I started in corrections, we had nothing. Like, you had a leather belt that held up your pants and like maybe your radio pouch. Like, that was it, right? And so there was no reliance on like literal tools on your duty belt, your tool belt. There was your mouth to be able to talk. And then we always used to joke, thunder and lightning. And like, if you had to pull out thunder and lightning, it's because your mouth didn't work and now you got to scrap, right? But like that reliance on those tools, you didn't have them. So there was no reliance. Your only reliance was on, can you talk this guy down? Or can you scrap? And let's hope that you can talk the guy down, because getting like scrapping every day, fucking tough. And especially if you're scrapping multiple times on a shift, it's fucking exhausting and you're going to get hurt and it sucks. So if you can talk a guy down, that's a way better, like, proposition for yourself than it is. And I'm like, especially nowadays as we've moved into excessive use of force, constant critical scrutiny on law enforcement if we ever go into a use of force situation, right? Like, your communication skills are make it or break it when you're in these roles. And like, you have to be able to talk to people. If you can't talk to people, this is not the role for you. Like, it is not the role for you. If you think you're going to come in and bang a guy out all the time and you're going to scrap all the time, see you later. Because like, your career is going to be very short-lived. You're either going to get fired or you're going to get fucking beat the piss out of, like, and then you're done. So absolutely agree with that, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. My comm skills have saved my ass, and it's also saved other people who have been in situations that just needed somebody to get to their level and talk to them and really take the time to figure out what they were going through.
Fantastic. Okay, last question I have for you. And again, because you've got so many different careers, what is a piece of advice that you would give to somebody that's looking to get into either any of the three or just into a first responder role in?
So I would say for any of these roles, like, first and foremost, remember your why. Like, remember why you're doing it. Like, don't lose sight of that and who you are and what brought you to where you're at, because people will have opinions, people will say things, people will be jealous, there'll be competition, and none of that matters if you focus on why you're there. For me, it was always, like, I was told so many times, for example, when I was a team leader and I was the only female one, and it was like, you're too soft. And I'm like, no, I'm not, because I care about people and care about my people. It does not make me too soft. If you look at the results, I have a productive team that is cohesive. So what I'm doing is the right way, and I'm not going to change who I am. So don't lose who you are and remember your why. Like, first and foremost, always just really focus on being self-aware and understanding that people behave the way they do for a reason. So take that time to be aware of yourself and why you react to certain things and behave the way you do, and how you can better understand other people's behavior.
Yes, mic drop. Absolutely correct. Absolutely. Yep, that is like, you nailed it. You absolutely nailed it. Like, there's like, yeah, that's the why is huge, and we do lose it. We get judgmental, we get bitter, we get upset, like you said, when the promotion doesn't go your way, or when you see that favoritism and you think, I'm fucking killing myself over here and that guy's a lazy sack of shit, and why is he getting, the prime spot, or he's getting the shift, or like, but you got to come back to, why did you get into this? What is your end goal? What do you want? Because that bitterness will creep in, that anger will creep in, it will take over, and you won't be able to dig yourself out of it if you can't keep an eye on that why. And I mean, usually our why is our family. It's our family, it's our kids, it's our, significant others. It's those people that we go home to at the end of the day. You just can't become that's your sole identity. It has to be that you're doing this for something. And maybe your why is because you want to help people, or maybe your why is because you want to succeed professionally. That's great, but that role, it can't become your sole identity. because it's just going to burn you out. You're going to fly too close to the sun and burn right out. So yeah. Fantastic. Well, my girl, this has been a slice. And I like wrote a bunch of notes and I was like, okay, season 7, Susie's coming back. We're going to talk about tour deployment and we're going to talk about this and we're going to talk about that. So, well, who knows when it'll happen, because I know it took us 6 months to get this one sorted out. But hey, it's going to happen, people. Stay tuned for the next episode. This is going to happen at some point in the future. Any last words for our listeners?
Just absolutely, I want to come back. There's so much I wanted to say today and messages I want to pass on to fellow female first responders. So I hope I can come back and chat with you some more. But thank you to those of you, that listened to this, that came before me and, showed me some inspiration and motivation that we can do this. And those that come after me, girl, you got this. And if you ever feel alone, you find me on Instagram or something else, you get a hold of me, because I'll be in your corner, because we have to support each other and lift each other up.
Yes.
So thank you, Nikki, for doing that with this podcast.
Oh, I love that. And that's absolutely correct. We got to stick together. We got to be sisters through this. We got to take care of each other. And I love that you honored those that came before us and led the way, because I think you and I both kind of came into this at about the same time, where women were there was more of us coming along, but there still wasn't a ton of us. And I think over my 20 years of, what I did, and I think how hard I thought it was. And then I literally sat back the other day and I was talking to one of my old girls that, started when in my very first episode, I mentioned her. She was like an old officer then. And I was like this rookie and I was like, oh my God. And she's like, you're doing great, kid. And I was like, holy fuck. Okay, good. And so I was talking to her the other day and I thought about it. And I was like, if I thought it was tough in my 20 years, she already had 20 plus years in when I started. So she had gone through the shit being like literally the only fucking female in the building for years. And I was just like, I thought it was hard. How the fuck did she get through it? Lord, help me. Thank you for doing it. You're a godsend, right? So yes, honor and shout out to the ladies that came before us for sure. Yes. All right. Well, I hope you have an amazing rest of your day.
Yeah.
Go and enjoy that sun and take care of your fam. And we will chat again soon. Well, that's it for today, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in, listening, giving me your time, your energy, and your attention. I completely appreciate it. Make sure you check out our next episode with another badass female first responder anywhere you get your favorite podcasts. And follow us on Instagram and Facebook at bluelinefitnesstesting.com. I hope you stay safe, keep your head on a swivel, and watch your six.